people to continue to write think pieces and parse what he said. I was like, oh, well, this is just Trump. And to play for black voters, this is so unserious. So unserious. Do we not deserve more? And damn it, it's Black History Month.
I don't think here's the thing, though. These are not, to quote.
And that's a troubling sign, given that the black voters are the bedrock of the party. It kind of shows that, hey, you need to figure out how to communicate to some of these key constituencies as you start to barrel toward the November general election.
Laken Riley, an Augusta University nursing student, was killed while jogging through his border legacy. Laken Riley, an Augusta University nursing student, was killed while jogging Thursday morning. The following day, police arrested 26-year-old Jose Ibarra. Ibarra faces 8 charges, including malice murder, felony murder, and kidnapping. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says Ibarra, a Venezuelan citizen, unlawfully entered the country near El Paso, Texas in September 2022. He was detained and then released by Border Protection. In September 2023, ICE says Ibarra was arrested in New York City for allegedly endangering a child.
This is the America and the carnage left in America after Biden directed Mayorkas to resume catch and release at the border. Now, the murder of a hardworking young American would not have happened if liberal Democrats had put the safety of the American people first. Of course, Democrats claim to be champions, though, don't they, of women, especially working women.
No one fights harder to build a better future for our nation and to lift up women and girls around our country and to secure their basic rights and freedoms than our president.
But those were just words, because when push came to shove, their interest in bringing in cheap labor for their donors and new voters for their party trumps the well-being of girls and women already here. Now, including the innocent child who was allegedly attacked by this man, Renza Mendoza Montez, another Venezuelan illegal who got a free ticket into the country under Biden's border rules. Local media is just reporting that after crossing into El Paso, Texas in September of 2023, Montez was released into the United States, again, catch and release, and was just arrested in Campbell County, Virginia on 2 felony counts for the sexual assault of a minor. This is heartbreaking. It is infuriating. These savages made their way here because they knew they'd be able to stay. And by the way, they'd get free stuff on top of it. And they get a wide access, don't they, to the victims of their choice, of all ages and all backgrounds. Targets galore. Sadly, there are thousands of victims of illegal alien crime who are forgotten.
Rafael Govea Romero is now behind bars in Jackson County, charged with capital murder in the death of 16-year-old Lisbeth Medina. Etna police say Romero is undocumented. Darwin Gomez-Esquiel is back in the system again, this time in connection with a shoplifting robbery at Macy's in the Queens Center Mall in Elmhurst. He was arrested Tuesday. Police say he was part of a group who stole from the store and attacked a security officer. Just a few weeks ago, he was arrested as part of the migrant mob that kicked and punched 2 NYPD officers in Times Square.
Again, these are crimes that would not have happened if we had a president who cared about America first. Think about the tens of thousands of girls and women across the country who are now afraid of going jogging or even working late, having to park in a garage underneath your building out of fear, because they know our government refuses to protect them. This open border policy is the Biden policy. Why do you think Biden's getting so much money from big business? It's certainly not because they want to raise wages and help the working class, please. They want a never-ending flow of cheap labor entering the United States with the added bonus of demographically changing the country, and you get no say over this. And do not ever believe for a second that Biden was ever serious about a bipartisan enforcement solution at the border, despite these lame lines.
Democrats want to work to get things done. We want to work with Republicans in a bipartisan way to fix our problems at the border.
We have seen that Republicans are not interested in doing anything to address the southern border.
House Republicans want to distort the Constitution and the Secretary's record. to cover up their inability and unwillingness to work with Democrats to strengthen border security.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Hogwash. Even McConnell couldn't support the bill at the end. And we knew Democrats were just playing games when Biden refused to even meet with the Speaker of the House on the border issue. Now, explain this to me. How is it a negotiation when the Republican Speaker isn't even involved? Nor were any of the other border hawks who have credibility on this border issue. Democrats were never really trying to shut down the border. They were just wanting political cover. Same reason Biden is traveling to the border this week. Why wasn't he there in 2021, 2022? Where's the border czarina, Kamala Harris? My friends, this is all political theater. It's another transparent scheme to mollify the voters before November. And anything Biden does, like some executive orders that he said he couldn't do 2 weeks ago, but now will supposedly crack down on asylum, that's just going to be reversed if he's ever reelected. And back to Laken Riley's tragic story. It is just one of thousands where Americans are brutalized by Biden's open border.
A 911 call led to a gruesome murder scene, and that suspect, we're learning, was not even supposed to be in the country.
The 11-year-old Maria was found dead inside of her apartment August 12th. She was at home while her father was at work. After texting her dad about someone knocking on their door, he found her body in a trash bag under a mattress later that afternoon. Investigators confirmed she was strangled and assaulted. Police confirmed Garcia Rodriguez was living at the same complex for at least 3 weeks and was last seen August 14th. The Guatemalan immigrant arrived in the States just months before.
How much do Democrats care about these victims? Just a few weeks ago, 150 Democrats in the House voted against a bill that would deport illegals who committed DUIs. That says it all. This is the Democrats' position. If Americans have to die or be injured or maimed or suffer in any way as a result of an open border, whether it's from fentanyl crime, so be it. That's what has to happen. Those Americans are necessary collateral damage. Compare for a minute how Joe Biden and the Democrats on the Hill, the U.S. media, reacted to the death of George Floyd, a career criminal, who was killed as he resisted arrest when high on drugs. Remember, the tributes came pouring in for weeks. Cities were burned and looted, and corporations ended up giving millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter. Now, I don't expect a multi-day funeral for Laken Riley with celebrities comforting her family, big-name lawyers representing her family. Of course not. In fact, they know Biden's policies ensure that there will be many more victims because of the administration's refusal to do what's right.
Republicans, in order to win an election, say we need to hermetically seal the border while ginning up this false narrative about this being a crisis. The United States, our culture, our population, our economy needs immigration like lungs need oxygen.
Yeah, I think Laken Riley needed that immigration, AOC. Of course it's not a crisis for her and people like her. She thinks that anyone who can get to the border should have the same rights and privileges as an American citizen. That includes voting, receiving full benefits, serving in the military, that's coming, by the way. Being police officers, we're already thinking about that in Colorado. You get the point. Because for these radicals, there's nothing special about being an American citizen. Nothing. Now, tomorrow's the Michigan primary. Immigration is top of mind for many voters there. And then Super Tuesday, that's next week. The same dynamic will be at play, and it should be. The border issue should be the defining issue for people because it defines who we are as a people. So if voters want a real border, if they want American citizenship to still mean something, and they want to stop tragedies like the murder of Laken Riley, then we must get Biden out of office. Because I'm telling you tonight, if he's allowed another 4 years, we're going to have tens of millions of illegals here to commit more crimes, drive wages down further, and overwhelm state and local governments.
And that's a troubling sign, given that the black voters are the bedrock of the party. It kind of shows that, hey, you need to figure out how to communicate to some of these key constituencies as you start to barrel toward the November general election.
And then by the end of 2028, we may be so overrun that it's impossible to save America. And that's the angle. All right, joining us now is Tammy Nobles, who is the mother of Kaya Hamilton, the 20-year-old who was raped and murdered in 2022, allegedly by an illegal alien with ties to the MS-13 gang. Tammy, I know you must, your heart must be breaking for Laken Riley's family. You've been warning about this for years. Tell us what your thoughts are tonight after seeing another tragedy like the one that befell your family.
I am so sad and so angry that this has happened to another mother, the same that what happened to Kayla. Kayla was just sleeping in her bed in her home, and she was brutally murdered and raped. And now this young lady was just running. Our young women aren't safe. Our young women are not safe.
But Tammy, this is the open border policy of the Biden administration. They could have stopped this years ago. They decided they wanted as many people to come into the country as possible. That is their policy. And they're pro-women. We're all for girls, girl power. How many times do you hear that? And to that, you say tonight?
I don't see no girl power. I mean, I see our women being killed, murdered, and raped, and nobody's doing anything. Nobody is standing up and doing anything. I am trying to do what I can to bring awareness and to keep this from happening and to let government officials know something has to be done. Something has to be done. This cannot keep happening.
Tammy, tonight Joe Biden, who is supposedly going to travel to the border this week, finally, did make a comment about the border while enjoying some ice cream. Watch.
I was planning to go Thursday. What I didn't know is my good friend apparently is going.
And will you meet with migrants while you're there, Mr. President?
Well, I'm not going to announce ahead of time. Secret Service don't like me announcing exactly.
Tammy, it's kind of hard to hear him, but you know, it's hard to take him seriously when he can't put down the ice cream cone long enough to talk about the crisis.
Yeah, that's really aggravating. I don't know why he's visiting the border now. My thought was if I would see him at the border, I would tell him to go home. Go home. Why are you even here now? Why do you wait till the end of your presidency to visit the border now? What is the reason for you doing it now? Yeah, that's really aggravating. I don't know why he's visiting the border now. My thought was if I would see him at the border, I would tell him to go home. Go home. Why are you even here now? Why do you wait till the end of your presidency to visit the border now? What is the reason for you doing it now?
Well, he's looking at the poll numbers. It's the #1 issue in the minds of most American voters. That's why. That's the only reason he's going. By the way, Tammy,
it's too late.
Well, it's time for a new president. By the way, a new poll is showing, Tammy, that for the first time, a majority of Americans now do favor the construction of a border wall, the one that Trump tried to build for a measly $5 billion. We've sent $100+ billion to Ukraine. They wouldn't give him $5 for the border wall, but now Americans are finally starting to realize, man, we got a major problem here.
Well, we should have done that a long time ago, and then lives like Kayla and Lakeland, they would have never died.
And that's a troubling sign, given that the black voters are the bedrock of the party. It kind of shows that, hey, you need to figure out how to communicate to some of these key constituencies as you start to barrel toward the November general election.
Why do you think that people, all these polls show like a lot of voters look back on the Trump years and they think they didn't like a lot about it, but they think the economy was good in the Trump years? You know, before that, Donald Trump was presiding over an okay economy.
You know, again, I don't know. I can't explain polling. No, I mean I can't.
No, I don't.
I can't, and I can't explain how the narratives come today.
So Senator Liz Warren is totally bewildered on why Americans miss the Trump economy. It's no surprise. Warren was always bad with numbers. Remember when she thought that 1/1000th of a Native American meant that she was the real deal? So under Trump, overall inflation was just over 6% during his first 3 years. Under Biden, it was up nearly 18%. And the most important stat, your grocery bill, under President Trump, it was up 2%. Under Joe Biden, it's up 21%.
And that's a troubling sign, given that the black voters are the bedrock of the party. It kind of shows that, hey, you need to figure out how to communicate to some of these key constituencies as you start to barrel toward the November general election.
And people to continue to write think pieces and parse what he said. It's like, oh, well, this is just Trump and to play for black voters. This is so unserious. So unserious. Do we not deserve more? And damn it, it's Black History Month.
I don't think here's the thing, though. These are not, I mean, to quote.
Tammy, I know Laken Riley's family is in mourning, but your message tonight to Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas, Kamala Harris, all of the Democrats who for years said this was not a crisis and who say they do not bear responsibility for this.
Oh, they sure are responsible for their deaths. Both their deaths and other deaths could have been prevented if they would have done their job at the border and made sure it's secure. We come first. Americans should come first, not last. Our safety matters. Their lives matter.
Riley's family is in mourning, but your message tonight to Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas, Kamala Harris, all of the Democrats who for years said this was not a crisis and who say they do not bear responsibility for this.
Oh, they sure are responsible for their deaths. Both their deaths and other deaths could have been prevented if they would have done their job at the border and made sure it's secure. We come first. Americans should come first, not last. Our safety matters. Their lives matter.
Tammy, we're so sorry. I mean, words don't describe how infuriated I am and heartbroken I am for you and for all the families across the country who are suffering tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
And that's a troubling sign, given that the black voters are the bedrock of the party. It kind of shows that, hey, you need to figure out how to communicate to some of these key constituencies as you start to barrel toward the November general election.
And she has no mind what she's going to do with our people. She's taking resources from Roxbury and also from all across Massachusetts with people who are struggling now. Her responsibilities are to Massachusetts, not someone who hopped over the border.
Catherine, you heard in that video when asked a question, the governor said, oh, we need more housing. When it comes to the governor and the other officials that you have questioned on this, what do you make of the response or lack thereof that you're getting from them when it comes to, hey, we're taxpaying citizens and we're getting the shaft?
Well, it's simple. Boston is full. We can't handle all of these migrants coming in. Governor Haley and Mayor Michelle Wu are, they're putting a huge burden on the residents of Roxbury. Even less than a quarter mile down the road, there's an open air drug market. These people are already struggling in this neighborhood, and now they're having one of their assets taken away from them. It's not fair to them.
Sean, do you scratch your head and ask yourself, why don't these two, Wu and Healy, just tell Joe Biden, their Democrat leader, to just shut the border and enforce the law at the border? Then none of this would be necessary. Do you ask yourself that?
I know exactly why. They're in contact with Joe Biden's White House, and they're going along with his agenda with basically replacing us residents as their new voters and their cheap workforce labor. Again, Boston is full. They don't care about us. They only care about their agenda and their political careers at our expense.
Sean, the state says the migrants will be out by May. Do you trust that?
No, I don't. The last time they said something was going to last so long, it lasted 3 years when we had the COVID lockdowns. 3 months for the curve, and then 3 months turned into the 3 years, and we still dealing with COVID.
Sean, when you look at here in New York City, when the migrants have left a place where they have been housed, that place has been left in absolute disrepair. The state says after the 4-month period is up that you can trust them to have it all cleaned up and all set and ready for the kids and seniors, I should add, once again. Do you trust that it's going to be cleaned up when the migrants leave?
No, I do not. I know for a fact that in the state of Massachusetts and Boston, the government takes their time doing anything. And when they tell us, oh, it's going to take 2 weeks for us to finish something up, it takes a year. People have been complaining. When both me and Catherine were ran for city council at large candidates, we've heard so many complaints from the citizens talking about, well, you have things that are just impaired, and they've been calling City Hall multiple times, and their calls are being ignored.
Catherine,
so I'm not surprised when this occurred.
Catherine, why do these Democrat leaders seem so willing to subjugate the interests of the tax-paying American citizens in favor of those literally invading our country? Final word to you, Catherine.
That's a great question. We already have over 7,500 immigrant families living in Boston. We are completely depleting all of our resources, and it's not fair to American-born citizens who are already struggling with homelessness that don't have enough resources for ourselves. We can't continue to help these people.
Amen. When you think of the veterans that are homeless, why aren't we paying attention to them? Why are we subjugating their interests for the illegals as well? Sean and Catherine, keep up the fight.
People to continue to write think pieces and parse what he said. It's like, oh, well, this is just Trump and it's a play for black voters. This is so unserious. So unserious. Do we not deserve more? And damn it, it's Black History Month.
Here's the thing, though. These are not, to quote.
In the meantime, an illegal alien is now accused of killing a 10-year-old boy walking home from school in Midland, Texas, in a hit-and-run crash. After he was hit, Alex A.J. Wise, pictured right here, was left at the scene critically injured. He died from his injuries the next morning. Rogelio Ortiz Olivas, a Mexican national, has now been charged with drunk driving and causing the fatal hit-and-run crash. He had previously been deported 5 times, and he's now being held on an immigration detainer with ICE. ICE also announcing today, agents arrested an illegal immigrant from Guatemala who is facing felony child molestation charges in Providence, Rhode Island, and was released from custody after the local jail in Cranston, Rhode Island, ignored ICE's detainer request.
New York will be handing out tens of millions of dollars to migrants, and some of them could get more than $1,000 a month.
Yeah, so I hit the streets, and after I was done hitting the streets, I decided to ask some questions. Ask the taxpayers what they'd do with all that free money if they got it. Wait until you hear the answers. We're going to share them with you next. This city has decided it's going to be giving illegal migrants about $1,500 a month in living expenses. Thoughts on that?
I think that's a tough pill to swallow. It starts at the border, though, coming across the border, legally, illegally.
The Migrant Welcome Center in San Diego shutting down today, 6 months after it opened. And now surrounding towns are worried that unvetted migrants will head for their communities while the border remains open.
Where are you from?
India.
India.
China.
China. China. China. China. China. Where are you from?
Georgia.
Georgia. Where are you from?
China.
China. China. Where are you from? Ecuador. Ecuador. Colombia. ¿De dónde son? Colombia. ¿Todos aquí de Colombia? ¿De dónde son? México. Okay, muchas gracias.
Mayor Wells is the mayor of El Cajon, California, just outside San Diego, and he joins me now. Mayor Wells, good morning to you. So, as you just heard, people from places all over the world, including countries that have national security concerns with the U.S. What are you seeing in El Cajon right now, and what are your big concerns now that this migrant center in San Diego has shut down?
Well, over the past few months, we've seen 100,000 migrants come across the San Diego border. A lot of those have been absorbed by this county shelter that used taxpayer money, but they asked for $3 million. They spent over $6 million, and now they say they're out of money. So we're going to see migrants congregating on our streets. And at the same time that this is happening, the Border Patrol tells us that we're going to go from 300 drop-offs a day to maybe 1,000 drop-offs a day. So I think it's going to become a pretty serious problem pretty quickly.
I mean, that is the question. Where will these individuals go? You mentioned the streets. They all can't just live on the streets. Yeah, San Diego's pretty temperate, but at some point you got to go inside. So where is that inside? Yeah. Is it in people's homes like the mayors of sanctuary cities want to put people? Is it in abandoned buildings? I mean, where is this, Mayor?
We have no idea. You know, the county really operates in secrecy, like most government entities, because they don't want to talk about this migrant crisis because they know the people don't like it. But I can tell you that in the past, there homeless people that they put into hotels, and a lot of them in my town, when I've been out here talking about that as well, they spend up to $8,000 per person per month to put somebody up in a hotel, and they seem to have no problem spending that kind of money. It ruins the neighborhoods, it destroys the hotels, it destroys our security infrastructure, and it's really bad for everybody. But I think there's only so many hotels because we've already got a very serious homeless problem in California, a lawlessness problem. So I think this really compounds the problem.
So Chinese migrants are the fastest growing group of border crossers right now. Is that what you're seeing in El Cajon? Does that match your experience? What's your reaction to that, and what are some of your concerns there?
Yeah, that's a real thing. I went down to the border recently to just kind of see what was going on. And I came across an encampment of people, probably about 150 people there. Every one of them was a Chinese migrant. I didn't see any women. I didn't see any children. It was all just young men. And yeah, I think that's a real serious concern. China is not neutral with us. They're somewhat of an enemy, at least in a Cold War at this point. And it makes me nervous to see enemies of our nation congregating right in our city. You know, we have no idea how many are in El Cajon. El Cajon's just a few miles east of San Diego. But we have a trolley drop-off station, and we know that the Border Patrol is dropping them off at the trolley station. So we're seeing more and more.
Yeah, we were talking with Griff Jenkins about this. He made the point the Chinese migrants are really focused on coming through San Diego, not Texas, because Texas, there's some modicum of security. There's nothing in California, and that's scary. Mayor Bill Wills, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
I hit the streets of the great city of New York to talk to everyday Americans about the migrant crisis and other issues facing our nation. Here's how it went. Watch. This city has decided it's going to be giving illegal migrants about $1,500 a month in living expenses. As a New York taxpayer, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a tough pill to swallow. It starts at the border, though. Coming across the border, legally, illegally, I think they really need to deal with that.
As a New York taxpayer, though, what could you do with an extra $1,500 a month?
My kids' education, pay my property tax, which goes up every year.
A lot. I have 3 children in college and car payments and everything else, so I would definitely make it useful.
The president is out in your great state trying to raise some money. Do you feel the president is in touch or out of touch with the people?
No, out of touch.
Whoa.
If and when Gavin Newsom is the nominee, what does that mean for the United States of America?
You know what? I try not to think about this, honestly. I'm not a Gavin Newsom fan. We're in the process of moving to Arizona. One of the reasons is because everything that's going on in California.
Politics in California.
Taxes are too high. The costs are too high. We're leaving. We're done. We're out.
The thing that stood out to me is a lot of those folks answer the question like I would answer it if I were asked. What would you do with that extra $1,500?
Yeah,
think about your kids, you know, their education, things for them, because we view everything through our children once you have them. And think about that. The government is putting somebody else's family above yours, and you're the taxpayer. Yeah. And it's not even kids that they're putting above you. It's single adult migrants who, in all likelihood, 99.9% of the time, do not have a valid asylum claim. They just want the free stuff in our country, and your kids, the ones that came out of your womb that you birthed, are the ones that have to pay for it. It's not right.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I like that woman who, when you ask, like, is President Biden out of touch? Is that she's like, huh? Yeah. So this $1,500 a month program to give this money to illegal immigrants, it's a proposal right now. It would be on a prepaid credit card for migrants to get food. And what Mayor Adams is saying is that it's actually going to be cheaper. It's going to save the city money because they're providing food, you know, like a buffet style type meal and bagged lunches that these migrants aren't eating. It's just going in the trash. So maybe that's true financially, but if you think about actually handing somebody a card of money, especially when you think about residents who may be struggling or the homeless. It's just one of those, it's not a political winner whatsoever. I don't think that this is going to pass.
And to your point, you're bending over backwards for people who you've given charity to and then they turn down that charity. I don't mean to be cruel, but if your kid's not eating, you wait them out and you make sure that they eventually get hungry enough that they eat whatever's on their plate. Why are we being, oh, you don't want the beautiful meals we're preparing for you? Here's $1,500 of my taxpayer dollars because you don't like a sandwich.
2 years ago, Mayor Adams was at Port Authority welcoming the migrants who came from Texas off buses, saying, give me you're tired, you're weary, and now he's singing a different tune. What a difference 2 years makes. All right, listen to this. An Arizona DA is refusing to extradite a murder suspect back to New York because she thinks Alvin Bragg will mess up the case. Sheriff Cassoni is here with that story coming up next.
She's playing hardball, and a champion cyclist is banned from speaking at an International Women's Day event because she served in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. She's here to talk about being canceled for her compulsory military service.
And that's a troubling sign, given that the black voters are the bedrock of the party. It kind of shows that, hey, you need to figure out how to communicate to some of these key constituencies as you start to barrel toward the November general election.
And we close on that.
Really, literally thought I was going to die.
Boy! Yeah.